remember you were talking at Titan conference about AI as augmented intelligence rather than just, let's say, a competition for people.
Yeah.
More like.
Yeah.
So have your views changed since then, evolved, given the new things happening in AI?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've noticed more activity in the domains that I'm thinking about than 10 years ago. So I feel more validated. And this was what I'm talking about. So of course, augmented intelligence is not something I coined.
Yeah.
It's Douglas Engelbart, working at the Stanford Research Institute in the mid-20th century. And of course, he's most famous for, of course, the mother of all demos, which demonstrate the mouse and windowing environments and all that, right? And the original usage of that term, of course, is to have computers sort of at our call to augment our natural intelligence and natural abilities. And this is the great future that he sort of envisioned for those who are unfamiliar with this term that might be watching. And I've actually seen, I wish I could name drop right now, but there are some really interesting, people working on these concepts of augmented intelligence. They're mostly people in the domain of the future of programming, people that are investigating other ways to enable people to be expressive that aren't necessarily syntax geeks, like you and I might be. There's some really exciting ideas floating around. And the thing about it is like, you said this thing earlier about, the limitations are such that these days people can sit down and they can kind of do what they want without worrying about what the machine is capable of, right? And we're getting to the point with cloud, of course, where you could even just, if you didn't have enough resource, you can rent more, download more RAM. That's a good website, by the way. Download more RAM. Really funny one.
That's cool.
Anyway, so the work in this area is really interesting, and I'm hoping that it'll continue to gain sort of more cachet in terms of like research and interest, because of course machine learning is the domain of great investments and research interest right now, where the results are, of course, AlphaGo is, of course, an astonishing achievement. I mean, there's no denying sort of what's happened in machine learning the last 10 years. And I think there are limitations to what's, with this black box approach, but you can't take anything away from just, it's been astonishing. And I think that augmented intelligence is something that is more, to your point earlier, also is more of a cultural thing. It has to be where people start seeing and feeling more expressive, more empowered by their devices in it. So it's not a short like leap, like the mother of all demos was a leap, or a short leap like AlphaGo is a leap. These leaps where people are amazed by what the computer can do. They're smaller victories that I think add up, where, for example, the things that went into the iPhone, the computer in your pocket, there were plenty of computers in your pocket before the iPhone, right? Yeah. And it just took a lot of small things to change before that product could come to life. And even that product for me has been, well, I guess the tablet has been kind of uninspiring to me, because we're still not at the point that Alan Kay envisioned, 70 years ago, where, like, for me, most of what's happening on the tablet, there are some exceptions, some great apps that are exceptions, but for the most part, the tablet is a consumption device and not an expression device, a way for me to build my own tooling and easily build my own tooling, just based on what I was creatively thinking, as easy as I could use a pen and paper, and or work with wood or whatever. So the augmented intelligence paradigm has to see those sorts of tooling come together, and then maybe there could be a big time product that comes out of that. But at the very least, these small gains are kind of, I think, where it's at for the foreseeable, for the near future. We're still in the small gain sort of thing, where really adventurous people are mining ideas in the past that were impossible to do at Xerox PARC because the hardware wasn't there, or were impossible to do at SRI because the hardware wasn't there. Even like, for example, and then this is where I'll stop sort of this ramble, but even, for example, immutability in programming. Like immutability is not a new concept, but changes in hardware and changes in algorithmic research, new efficiencies found within how we structure or write algorithms, have made immutability something that's possible. And I think that's a huge game changer too.
So you mean in hardware, you can make immutability possible, or?
Yeah, I kind of leaped. Sorry, there. I kind of leaped between two things. One, augmented intelligence, small victories, to hopefully eventually make a big time product. And but I was also saying, but a lot of these ideas that people are mining from come from the 70s, come from the 60s, when the computational resources weren't there. The same can be said about programming languages and programming concepts like immutability, right? Which really wasn't possible in hardware, but it also was because of continued algorithmic research into continued research into data structures, I guess is more accurate, to create the underlying tree structure that can make this possible, branching structure.
So you would expect more of an incremental development on augmented intelligence, to the point where we get to be more expressive, or something like that.
I think we're
bring more ideas together.
I think we're still not there. And I'll say something really quick that kind of is my threshold. And I think, so Alan Kay, when he published about the Dynabook, sort of what he imagined was two kids having a Dynabook, which are essentially tablets, in the 1970s.
Yes.
That's what he's envisioning. And they were able to make games on the Dynabook and play games with each other, games that they made, not video games that were programmed for them that they're ingesting. And he was basing this on the idea of, kids on the playground make games all the time. They make them up constantly. They constantly are inventing. And so we want to create a software system that allows kids to do that. And that's my threshold. When kids can make games and have fun making stuff, this is a leap.